We do have a new member, Bob Baker, with us tonight. And Bob, as tradition, I'd like you to tell us a little bit about yourself and why you are interested in serving on this public commission.
Well, good evening, everybody. Public service, I think, has just been a way of life for me for a long time. I served 21 years in the Navy, got to fly F-14 Tomcats for that whole time, so it was service, but it was also a blast, too, so a lot of fun to do that. And then I flew for Alaska Airlines for 20 years, so transportation, pilot, you know, they kind of go hand in hand. And I think public service is something every citizen of this great country, we have so much to be thankful for. So it's just a natural for me to come and do something like this.
Thank you, Bob, and welcome to the commission. All right, moving to agenda item 2, approval of the meeting minutes. The meeting minutes were supplied to everyone. Has everyone had a chance to review them? Any comments on them? I did have one comment, one correction. When we were talking about the green or the signal timing, I think one of the statements was holding the green, and I don't remember which page it's on, but I think it was intended to be, or what was said was holding the red for the 3 directions. This was in relation to the dilemma zone detection.
I see it at the top of top of page 4 in the middle. I think it says research dilemma zone, red light. I just lost it.
Yeah, it's the word
It gets
green.
away from me.
The word green on the second line should be red.
Hold the green lights on the approaches.
Yeah, that should be red.
Okay. Red on that second line.
That's correct.
I will make that change.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Were there any other corrections or amendments? All right, hearing none, I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes from October 16th, 2025.
I move to approve the meeting minutes with the mentioned amendment from session from our September 2025 session.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Susan, you want to call a roll call?
Chair Wilcoxon?
Approved.
Thank you. Commissioner Marmon?
Approve.
Thank you. Commissioner Kofftheil?
Approved.
Thank you. Commissioner Cardella?
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Davis, unless he's there. Okay, he's not there. Commissioner Baker?
Approved.
Thank you. Minutes are approved as amended.
Great, thanks. Item number 3, election of a vice chair. We are looking for someone to fill the seat, the vacant seat next to me. I'm opening the floor up for nominations.
I would like to be considered vice chair. This is Commissioner Cardella.
Commissioner Cardella, we have your nomination. Any others? All right, well, we have a nomination. Do we need to vote on it, Susan?
I believe you do. I know it's an action item, but I don't know if we have to do a motion in a second, maybe just to be safe.
Okay.
I second Commissioner Cardella for vice chair.
Okay, and who was our motion? I'm sorry.
Commissioner Cardella.
Okay. Sorry for my poor memory. Okay, so motion by her and second by Kofftheil. All right. Chair Wilcoxon?
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Marmon?
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Kofftheil?
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Cardella?
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Davis? We'll come back to him. Commissioner Baker?
Yes.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Congratulations, Vice Chair Cardella. I
Yes,
would bring this over
congratulations.
there, but it'll make noise when I bring the tape, so I'll just try to make sure I address you properly. Thank you.
She gets her scepter later on,
Yeah.
right? Yes, all right.
And it will move you
Yes.
closer. Thank you.
So the first two votes of my tenure were both unanimous. I just want to make sure that the record is clear on that. All right. Item number 4, Transportation Safety Plan, Police Department, Traffic Safety Enforcement, and Education. Tonight, we have Lieutenant Christopher Piazza from the Scottsdale Police Department, Traffic Enforcement. Lieutenant, welcome back, and feel free to take the stand.
Good evening, everyone. Mr. Chair, Commissioners, thank you for having me back again. And I also want to thank you for the large font on the screen here. That's going to make things a lot easier for me. We worked as a team to put together this presentation. It should be a good 360-degree view of the police department's current and past traffic enforcement efforts. To start off, we'll just go over our general staffing and the tools we're using to assist with traffic enforcement and education. Our general patrol staff is approximately 160 officers. They're the ones that are patrolling on a daily, 24/7, 365. Those are the most obvious vehicles that our citizens are going to see, are fully marked cars, but there's also some semi-marked or unmarked cars that are mixed in with that fleet to help with more targeted enforcement of aggressive drivers. Specific to traffic enforcement, we do have a dedicated traffic enforcement section, which I'm the lieutenant over. That section includes the DUI unit, 2 motorcycle units, a vehicle crime reconstruction unit. They do crash reconstruction for serious injury and fatal crashes. We also have a special events and liquor enforcement section that works in with that group. It's a good combination. They help doing some investigations on the back end of serious injury crashes and ones that involved DUI. And up until June, we had the photo enforcement and vehicle impound unit, which is still up and running in the police department, just moved over to a new section, but we work with them day in and day out. We're still all in the same building, and it's a seamless transition back and forth. So that section, as of this moment, has about 30 officers, and each one of them have different types of vehicles, fully marked, semi-marked, and motorcycles. For the photo enforcement system, we have 11 static locations at 10 intersections, and then we have 4 mobile photo enforcement towers. Part of enforcement and education is reaching out to the public and outreach. So those outreach efforts are done through our public information office. Police department's PIO office does a lot of the forward communications for traffic details, any type of task force events. DUI task force events are going to be in the region, and they'll also put out some immediate information on crashes or something that might result in a shutdown of roadways, special events, that type of thing. And the other city public information officers also assist with some more planned events, which is extremely helpful, having that kind of whole city approach to getting information out to our public. As we dig into unit by unit, motorcycle units, we've got 2 squads. Right now we have between 10 and 12 officers depending on staffing. Their primary is going to be speed and red lights that you're going to see them work in those intersections. That's usually targeted enforcement, and we target it based on our crash volume, crash rates. They also do constant enforcement in school zones when schools are in session. So if you ever drive through a school zone in the morning or in the afternoon, you may see a motorcycle officer working over near the crosswalk, and then also working the approaches and takeaways leaving that school zone, trying to keep everybody driving at safe speeds. We've had really good success with safe school zones in Scottsdale. So we're really excited about that program and those deployments, and we'll continue with those in the future. Distracted driving is another big one that we send to our motorcycle units. They're well equipped to pull up next to cars and look through the window and see people who are texting instead of paying attention to cars in front of them. So that's one of the priorities, and we even do distracted driving details. We'll bring together both groups of motorcycle officers, bring in some other assistants, and have 10 to 20 officers go out and do a saturation detail in a roadway stretch. If we have high volume, a lot of complaints about the area, or we're just seeing crashes that are inexplicable, mid-block crashes, that type of thing. A lot of that comes back to distracted driving, people playing on cell phones. So we've been leaning into that more and more. We do child seat details. That's in coordination with the Governor's Office of Highway Safety. They have an annual program. We participate in that, do some public information on the front end, and we go out and we'll do some enforcement to ensure that parents are doing the right thing. A lot of that detail is education, but those are super effective. Red light enforcement, as we covered, pedestrian and bicycle awareness. That's another grant program that we work for with assistance of Governor's Office of Highway Safety. Motor officers will go out and they'll have time dedicated strictly to pedestrian and bicycle safety. So again, that's going to be a lot of warnings, a lot of contacts of people that are mid-block crossing, not using crosswalks, going against the flow of appropriate traffic, depending on if they're a pedestrian or bicycle, and reminding or teaching cyclists that all traffic laws apply to people on bicycles. Some cyclists aren't aware of that. They'll ride 3, 4, 5 abreast on roadways, or they won't stop for red lights, so the officer will go out. They'll conduct some education, but also some enforcement. They write tickets with that too. Our reconstruction unit is 5 detectives. 4 of them are line level, 1 of them's a sergeant. They are going out on your serious injury crashes and crashes that result in death. They are on call 24/7, 365. We have at least 2 detectives and a sergeant on call. So no matter when those crashes happen, we have a response team that goes out, and they put together complex investigations that are frequently filed through Maricopa County Attorney's Office, because a lot of those end up being felony cases. For those misdemeanor cases or civils, we file them through city court. DUI unit, I believe we have 6 positions for the DUI unit right now. They do evening most of the time, evening to nighttime DUI enforcement. They're all going to be in what we call semi-marked cars. Most people would call them unmarked cars. They've got no external markings, but they do have lights, and they're the ones that you'll see out there working our roadways and making stops looking for impaired drivers, be it DUI drugs or DUI alcohol. They are extremely effective in what they do, frequently one of the more productive groups in the valley. Photo enforcement sites, as we covered, 11 fixed sites. They're at 10 different intersections. We have 4 mobile sites. The vendor can move those around. Our program manager does a great job of doing analysis to see where they are most effective. They are rotated through school zones. They are a great tool for citizen complaints, and they're also very good for high crash approaches. For each one of those, a PD employee are the ones who review and issue citations and notices of violation. So it's actually somebody that's going to be assigned to the police department that does that. The next item is going to be sources of traffic complaints. We have citizen-generated complaints. They've got a number of different ways they can get complaints, inquiries to the police department. One of them is through Scottsdale EZ, a very user-friendly portal. Another way is going to be calling their local district, calling the police department, calling dispatch. That gets routed through to a complaint line that we have, and the motor officers manage that on the police side. And they also will email district commanders, community police officers, sometimes police officers that they know from previous contacts. Our motors have a lot of really good local community contacts, HOA leads, and they'll get emails from them, and they will go out and work those. Officer initiated. Those are some of my favorites because it's officers that are really keyed in on their beats. They're really keyed in on their beats. They're really focused on what's going on around them. and they will notice that people are speeding in a certain area, or people are rolling through a stop sign in a certain area. So a lot of officers will initiate their own complaints or observations. They'll send them out to their district teams, and then it'll turn into a team project to see if we can mitigate the problem. Frequently, enforcement does help, and we see positive results. Crash reports, that's another way that we can target our enforcement. We do quarterly reviews of our crash reports. Every 2 years, a traffic volume and crash report is published. We use that to really dial in and focus on long-term problems. We will work with the transportation team. They do a great job of coming up with engineering solutions when they are feasible. If they're not feasible, or even once they're implemented, the police department steps in and we will reinforce the new engineering if speed limits are changed, if the stop sign is added. So it's kind of a team effort. Photo enforcement data is also a great pointer for us. If the photo enforcement system is put on a mid-block area and it shows a high volume of speeding, we're going to rotate it out and we're going to move it to the next problem location. But we now know that data, and that data is going to get sent out to all of our officers. It comes out on a weekly basis. Our program manager puts that together, and that gets to every officer and every supervisor, and they can then push out targeted enforcement requests. Additional to all the enforcement education we discussed, we have a lot of education and outreach programs. When you're driving on the roads, most people are following the rules, and that's voluntary compliance. They understand the laws, they understand the rules, most people are going to comply with it. So to limit the need for enforcement, good outreach really does improve behavior. If people know the rules, most will follow them. So we have something called a Know Your Limits detail. That one's kind of unique. It started up in Scottsdale many years ago. It's spread nationally. And we'll have groups of officers that go out to special events or the bar district, entertainment district, and they will approach people with a portable breath test, a breathalyzer, PBT. And they will give them the opportunity to blow and see what their blood alcohol is. The benefit to this is there's a question before and after, and the question is, do you think you're okay to drive right now? And people will give an honest answer because they didn't just get pulled over, they're not in a bad situation. Most people think this is kind of a fun thing to do. And they'll give an honest answer, and then we will let them know what their blood alcohol is, and that is a really good pointer for people. We have a lot of people that think they're okay to drive, and when they see that PBT result, they decide that they're gonna get in an Uber or Lyft or take a cab home. They're not gonna drive. The goal is for that to be a life lesson, not just a one-night fix. But successful program. Slow Down Scottsdale, we worked that with the transportation team. Another effective program, good outreach, letting people know, slow down, pay attention to speed limits, school zones. The other one is we use public outreach via social media. So all the PIOs in the city are great. They're all on the same page, and they will put out social media notifications about, slow down in this area, we've got a crash in this area, use a different road. And then they'll also put out forewarnings and public messaging if a specific detail is going to be conducted. Scottsdale website is another good place to go for education and outreach. GOHS, I think we touched on all of these grants. So these are grants that we touch on. One of them speed focused, another one is pedestrian and bicycle safety. And then we have 2 different DUI grants that we use. One is a federal fund, another is a state abatement fund. Crash reduction details, as we discussed, we get crash data on a quarterly, and then we will do some deep dives and try to determine where enforcement is most appropriate. So those are the details where we'll get 10 to 20 officers in one location. DUI saturation. If you ever have a night where you're going out to dinner or going out to an evening event and you look up and down Scottsdale Road and it looks like there's 10 people pulled over in a matter of 5 miles, that is a DUI saturation detail. Coordinated through the Governor's Office of Highway Safety. We are part of the East Valley Task Force, and when we host a task force event in Scottsdale, we could have 6 or 7 different agencies all posted up at our command post, and the officers will all be conducting enforcement in Scottsdale. Those are extremely effective. We notice that as we host, we'll start seeing dips in our DUIs just in that weekend alone, because if people see a lot of police officers on the road on Friday, Saturday we're actually a little lighter. So good short-term impacts, and based on stats, we would assume the long-term impacts are also positive. It's really good program, sends a good message, encourages people to get home safely and legally. Repeat offenders. DUI repeat offenders, a lot of people have questions about these, so we've added it to the presentation. Your first DUI has a penalty if you were found guilty in court, or if you've pled guilty. If you have subsequent DUIs within certain time frames, your penalty increases for the second one and increases for the third one. So you have increased penalties for DUIs, so repeat offenders have more repercussions than your first-time offenders. So first time, yes, there is a steep penalty, but it's a learning process, and we hope that you don't reoffend. If you do reoffend, there's a very good chance that you're going to have stiffer penalties all the way up to felonies. And people do go to prison for DUI. They do it quite frequently if they have multiple DUIs, especially if they result in injury or death. Photo enforcement. We touched on the overall program. Something that we do for repeat offenders with the photo enforcement program is we put together packets for repeat offenders. Somebody who may rack up 5 or more, 10 or more civil violations that will all be put together into a single packet, and we will assign that to a uniformed police officer to go knock on their door and serve them in person. Reason for that is, one, if they've racked up that many speed or red light tickets, it's probably appropriate for them to have a discussion with the police officer. 2, it's an efficient method of service. And 3, it speeds up the court process. Once everything's served, it can move through the courts quicker. And hopefully a penalty is the result, and we get some behavior modification, and then they don't become repeat offenders in the future. We do the same thing with our high-speed offenders. Threshold is around 90 miles an hour. We've done some below that, but mostly 90 miles an hour or above. We will put together a criminal packet. It is illegal to do, it is a crime to speed 20 miles an hour or more over the limit. We give a little bit of grace before we put together a criminal packet, but 90 miles an hour is a pretty solid threshold on city streets. And we will have an officer go visit them. At times they're cited and released, and there's other times where they are arrested and brought to jail for those offenses. E-bike enforcement. 5 years ago, I never thought I'd have this slide for this commission. They're everywhere now. They're everywhere. At first, there was no rules, but now there's rules. The state, the city did a great job catching up and catching up quickly. I think our ability to catch up with new micromobility options has really improved. So, City of Scottsdale, you can see the list of stakeholders got together. They put together a city ordinance, 17-771, and that provides some parameters for who can ride an e-bike, when they can ride an e-bike, where they can ride an e-bike, speed limits, and also has some provisions reference sale of e-bikes in the city of Scottsdale. And then we also do targeted education and enforcement details on e-bikes. A lot of the riders are young kids. Middle school is pretty common. I think once they get to high school and they get a car, e-bike isn't really the primary mode of transportation, but those middle school kids are in that age range. So we've been doing a lot of education, partnerships with the schools. Schools have been great. They've really helped out getting the word out, putting out laws, publishing stuff for families. Our officers and PIOs do the same. If there are people using e-bikes that are in violation of law, they do get tickets, and they can also be impounded. So we will impound that through our tow vendor. I believe this is our last slide, but it's just a quick chart of our enforcement efforts in calendar year 2024. We wrote a lot of tickets. And we are working as hard as we can to get those crash numbers down, and we're hoping to get the DUI arrests down. That's one of those numbers. You want to see a lot of DUI arrests because you know your officers are really effective, and you also don't want to see any DUI arrests because it'd be nice if people didn't drive while impaired. That's a constant balance, but our programs are effective, and I'm super happy with our current state of affairs when it comes to traffic safety in Scottsdale, and I am super happy with our officers' efforts. They've really put a lot of effort into all of these programs. That being said, I'll open it up to you all. Any questions?
Thank you, Lieutenant, and thank you for your service, your continued service on our roads. Questions? Lee.
I'm going to have a few questions, so thank you for your patience. I did very much appreciate the presentation, so thank you. So I guess the first one is when you said you've got the distracted driving unit. I was curious, you said they are trained to look through the window, see if people are texting, et cetera, et cetera. Do they just randomly pull up next to people to look through their windows, or are they looking through the back, or like what would cause somebody to go look through a driver's window?
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, good question. So that's going to be our motorcycle units that are probably the most effective. Every officer can see somebody using their phone. Being on a motorcycle, it's a little clearer view. They're sitting up a little higher. They've got good views through windows. They'll just be behind somebody, and they'll see them playing on their phone. They'll see them swerving, pull up next to them, and see that they're playing on their phone. Frequently, people that are on their phone are so distracted, they don't notice the fully marked BMW motorcycle in the lane next to them as they're texting their friends. Frequently, people will be at a red light next to an officer on a fully marked motorcycle, texting, no issue there, until they then accelerate and start driving down the roadway at 45 miles an hour while still texting and no hands on the wheel. So our officers have kind of picked up on the cues, and they've been pretty effective in identifying it and writing citations.
Do other types of distractions come into it? Like, since you mentioned, like, no hand driving, like, you know, basically if I'm eating while driving or something like that, is that something that's enforced or looked at all? Or is there other types of distractions, or is it just primarily just like mobile devices?
Mr. Chair and Commissioners, another good question. I actually asked that question a number of times earlier in my career. No laws against eating while driving.
Okay.
So the distracted driving statute is specific to cell phone holding, use, balancing, manipulating. But no, the old pulling open a map, that's not a citable offense.
Just if they're driving dangerously then, right? So.
Yes, okay. If they're holding up a map and failing to obey other traffic laws, they'll be cited for those other traffic laws, but the distracted driving law is specific to cell phones and other electronic devices.
Okay, thank you. You mentioned for the pedestrian cyclist safety, one of the things that you look for is mid-block crossings or things like that. Where I happen to live, there's not any crosswalks, you know, within like half a mile of where I am, and I live directly between two crosswalks, so it's a quarter-mile walk for either one. So I see a lot of mid-block crossings there. Do you share that information with the transportation department to say like, hey, this area you might want to think about putting in crosswalks or hawk signals or some other type of pedestrian thing, because it seems like there is a general want for that here? Is that information shared at all?
Mr. Chair and Commissioners, we have constant conversations back and forth. It's a very impressive relationship, the amount that our staff is communicating. Mid-block crossings are one of the discussions that we do have. Hawks are discussions that we've had. And it's a back and forth. We'll talk to them about engineering solutions. They'll talk to us about enforcement solutions. And we always work together and come up with a single solution, or sometimes multiple, as a team. So yeah, there's constant communication back and forth between the two teams.
On the Scottsdale subreddit, like at least weekly, there's always somebody on there going like, hey, I got a citation in the mail for this, what do I do? And the advice constantly is just ignore it and it'll go away if you do. Is that, because they say like it's done by the citation is issued by a third party, but from what your presentation, it sounds like the citation is reviewed and sent by the police department, the city of Scottsdale, not by a third party or anything like that. The cameras are run by the city as well. Is that correct?
Yeah, Mr. Chair and Commissioners, that's 100% correct.
Okay.
It is not a third party issuing the citations. It is a police department employee, at times police officers, who are issuing those citations.
Okay. And then, so you said for the mobile units, the mobile photo enforcement, you'll see like a bunch of activity in mid-block or whatever, and then you'll move the unit, and then that information will be shared with other officers and things like that. What exactly is done with the data, with that information? Like what is expected? What's the next steps, I guess, is the question. Like once you have that information, what is like the next steps that typically is done by you, or do you pass that on, and what do you expect to see happen there?
Mr. Chair and Commissioners, that was a reference to the photo enforcement systems can get placed out, and we can even get data from static systems. And it shows us the number of vehicles that passed the system during the period of time it was deployed, the percentage of those vehicles that were under the speed limit, the percentage that were over, the percentage that were 10 or more over, the percentage that were 20 or more over. So it's a very simple location, traffic volume, and then the percentage of vehicles or number of vehicles over whatever threshold. So that's the data that goes out to police officers, and we will ask them to go out and conduct enforcement if we have areas that have super high rates of speed. So that's the basic data that goes out, and then what the expectation is district teams, police officers, sergeants, lieutenants, they look at that data along with other crime data we have, and it helps with their directed enforcement and policing.
Thank you. I wanted to say your use of the word crash instead of accident, I really appreciate that. I think that's, we talk a lot about the use of changing the way we talk about these things, and so it's good to see that the police, that they're doing that there. For e-bike enforcement, I happened to be at Fashion Square this weekend, and there were two kids on motorbikes, electric motorbikes. They look like, you know, motorcycles or dirt bikes, basically. They're riding around there. They weren't being what I would call dangerous. You know, they're going like 3-4 miles an hour, and they were just slowly trying to wind their way through. What kind of action would the city, would the police department take for something like that? If, you know, I mean, that security guards, I think, eventually chased them out, but they were trying to catch them down. I saw them, like, they would go down the stairs, and then the or the security officers, like, waving at them from upside, telling them to get out, and then, you know, they're trying to track them down. But generally, what's the action for behavior like that?
Mr. Chair and Commissioners, reference e-bike enforcement. First, I'll say I am not the authority on this. I have a sergeant that's absolutely phenomenal at this stuff. He educates me on a monthly to catch me up to current trends, current laws. That being said, if they're operating on private property, police officers aren't going to, they can't do enforcement on private property. Once they hit public right-of-way, public sidewalks, public roadways, then they can start pulling people over if they violate the law. So if they violate Scottsdale Revised Code, they violate Title 28, Title 13, if it's something that falls into Title 13. Officers just initiate a traffic stop just like any other motor vehicle. They'll initiate a stop, sirens, and then they'll move through a stop like any other traffic stop. And enforcement is occasionally, often these days, the way that gets resolved, but we still have a lot of education.
How is like the new, like you said, the the code 17 dash, et cetera. How is the testing done on that to determine whether it's a class 1, class 2, class 3, or something else? Because I know in other jurisdictions, they actually have like mobile units where they'll mount the bike on there and then turn the throttle and see how fast it'll go. And I'm assuming we don't have something like that. So how is enforcement done to determine what kind of vehicle that those mobility devices are?
Mr. Chair and Commissioners, we don't have one of those tools. I've seen those on the internet too. We have what I would say a more effective tool. So what we ended up doing is we worked with our city attorney's office, prosecutor's office, and the folks at the state who created their laws. And we created a flow chart and identification chart that's far simpler, far more low-tech than the device you described. That's posted on our Scottsdale website. Every citizen has access to that. If they go to scottsdaleaz.gov, they can go in there and do a search for e-bikes, and there's a flow chart, and it shows exactly how to identify Class 1, Class 2, and Class 3. Officers have been trained on that. They have access to the site, and we've printed out flyers for them so they can go out there. A lot of it can be determined just by looking at the bike and the rider, and then a lot of it is once you conduct a traffic stop, they'll conduct additional investigation to determine what threshold they're at.
And then, thank you for that. One final question, then again. For the citation versus the, so that previous slide, traffic stops versus citations, or photo enforcement violation review versus citations, it's like, it looks like for the photo enforcement, like 40% are not cited, and then it's something a little less than 50% are not cited for actual traffic stops. And I was just wondering what's, especially for photo enforcement, why would somebody not be cited? Because I understand those cameras are already, for speeding, they're already set to be like 11 miles over, I think is what you said last time you were here. And then, yeah, so I'm just curious what the reasons are people aren't cited after the review, or when they pull somebody over. I assume when they pull somebody over, that's an informational. It's just like, hey, this is why I pulled you over. I need you to clean up your act or something. So,
Mr. Chair and Commissioners, we'll start with the officer side of the house. Officers have discretion. Once they make a traffic stop, they can make a determination if they think the behavior modification is going to come just from that traffic stop and a conversation, or if a citation is more appropriate for the behavior modification. At the end of the day, the goal isn't to issue a ticket every time. The goal is to maybe wake somebody up, give them a quick notice, and try to get them back into that voluntary compliance zone. But if the officer determines that a citation is appropriate, they'll issue it. For the photo enforcement program, there are citations that are issued, and then there's notices of violation that are issued. Notices of violation are issued for a variety of reasons. It may be a vehicle that's registered to you and they haven't positively identified the driver of the car. So that could result in a notice of violation. There's a few other items that would result in a notice of violation, inability to identify the driver. There's probably about 4 or 5 other items. I am not the expert on that. There's a program manager that runs that program, and he is well attuned to all of that. But that's why you see that gap in numbers.
okay. So it's citation when they, but, okay, versus notice of violation, that's the
Yes.
difference there. Oh, perfect. Thank you for your patience and answering all my questions.
Absolutely. Thank you for the questions.
Thank you. Bob Marmon, and then Bob Baker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My questions were touched on already.
Great. Bob?
I live in North Scottsdale off of Dynamite, and currently there's a photo enforcement station there. And there's the actual camera, and then before the camera, there's 2 signs that tell them the camera's coming. So everybody slams on their brakes as they approach the camera, and I've never seen anybody get dinged by the camera. Why do you have those 2 signs there to tell them the camera's coming?
Mr. Chair and Commissioners, outstanding question. That is required by law, state law. So the warning signs are required by state law.
Huh. Have you ever talked to anybody that could give any, I mean, it just doesn't make sense to me because a lot of the people are speeding, but then they get to the signs before the camera, you can see them slamming on their brakes so they don't get caught by the camera.
So by state law, once you hit a certain speed threshold, for certain speeds up until the signs are required. At other speeds, it's not required. I couldn't tell you what the exact threshold is. Like I said, the program manager would be more of an expert on that. But the purpose of the program is not to just write tickets. The hope is behavior modification and education. We've seen a positive impact on the program, not just from writing a bunch of tickets. So those signs, while people are dynamiting their brakes and they are slowing down quickly, that's part of the messaging we're trying to get out, is be aware, pay attention to your surroundings, and then the people who are going so fast that their reduction in speed still brings them to 11 or more, they're getting a citation. The people who are playing on their phone, distracted, not paying attention to their surroundings, and they go through 11 or more, they're going to get a citation. So there's a lot of education involved in a program. We notice after deploying the site, the speed on the roadway and the number of violations do go down. If we put a motor officer out there a week later, they're going to see less people driving at ludicrous speed. So it's effective. I do understand that there's times you'd like to just see people get citations for speeding, but the program is fine-tuned for education and enforcement.
I see. Thank you.
Commissioner Cardone.
Thank you. Thank you for including the stats from 2024 in terms of citations and DUIs and all of that. Are you able to speak at all to any trends over the last several years? Or, I mean, I guess relative to population, because I'm assuming everything's probably gone up. It's just there's more people and tourists here and such. But can you speak to any trends over time?
Mr. Chair and Commissioner, I don't have that at my fingertips. Yeah, I'll add that for the next one, and I can pass some information through afterwards. We'll see what we can find.
Chair Davis, Commissioner Davis, are you online?
I am, thank you. I did have one question. Is there any kind of sharing of, I guess, best practices or potentially new technologies that could be used for enforcement purposes amongst the various police departments in the Valley or nationally?
Mr. Chair, I couldn't understand that. If one of you could summarize and send it back to me.
If I understood the question correctly, I believe Commissioner Davis was asking about best practices within the Valley or nationally that Scottsdale is benefiting from as far as traffic enforcement and other new technology that's being used elsewhere, kind of like Commissioner Koftile mentioned.
Got it. Mr. Chair, Commissioners, thank you for the question. We are, I would say we're on the cutting edge of technology, and we are well within and usually far beyond local standards when it comes to traffic enforcement. Our department has a very high focus on traffic enforcement and crash reduction. Not only do we have that dedicated section beyond just a couple squads, it's that entire section, but we have all the data flow that goes out to our patrol officers who are working 24/7. They're assigned to districts and then select beats, so small geographic areas, a couple square miles, and they use the data that we provide them to target enforcement for speed, for red lights. So we're pretty far ahead of the curve with the data and technology that we have. The photo enforcement system is a phenomenal program for crash reduction, speed reduction. So absolute blessing having that in Scottsdale. Love the program. We also have some other technology where we can do speed studies. The transportation team has helped us with a lot of them. They can put speed tubes out to get readings for volume and speed. The police department also has the ability to put up portable devices that do no video, no photo. They're just speed recording devices. And we're able to create reports that will dial all the way down to the most impactful hour of a day that officers can go out there and spend time for targeted enforcement. There's nothing more frustrating for an officer who has a 10-hour shift that's told that they have a traffic problem in their beat, and they don't know the exact time to go, because they end up going, they'll spend 2-3 hours there, and it turns out that it was the wrong 2 or 3 hours. So using those tools helps us kind of dial in and refine when we do the enforcement.
Commissioner Davis, does that answer your
Fantastic.
question?
It does. I'm happy to hear that we are ahead of the curve tech-wise. Thank you for your presentation.
I just had a couple questions. First of all, I seem to remember a time when Scottsdale was not on the same 911 system as the rest of the valley, or at least the adjoining cities. I believe that is corrected. Is that correct?
Mr. Chair and Commissioners, the police department has their own 911 center in Scottsdale, so we have our own standalone 911 center.
Right, but is communication between the different cities adjoining Scottsdale pretty seamless, or is there?
It is. We're all, the valley's on a regional work group. So that regional work group allows us to patch through to local agencies back and forth, and our dispatchers have the ability to send voice information and also written information to dispatchers across the valley. And they can choose if they want to get information to the neighboring agency, or if they're trying to send something out on PSAP, which is a regional communication network. So it is the closest thing to seamless as you can get, and it's super effective, and we use it frequently. If not on a daily basis, I would say probably on a daily basis, but very frequently we're patching through to other agencies, or they're patching through to us. We can all join, talk on the same channel, and it's made things a lot safer for everybody on the road, and it's made it much easier if there's a transfer of jurisdiction.
Great, that's what I wanted to hear. And then based on your staffing numbers, it looks like there's no problem being competitive for pay. I know some of the valley cities are losing officers to higher paying agencies. It looks like Scottsdale is not one of them. Your pay is pretty competitive?
Mr. Commissioner, and Mr. Chair and Commissioners, I would say that we are well compensated at this point. I know our council has done a phenomenal job keeping us competitive. Our city manager's done a great job keeping us competitive. Our past chief, I have absolutely no complaints, and I know our staff is very happy, and we are competitive in the valley right now. Great,
great to hear. And then my last question has to do with photo enforcement. I appreciate your description of it, even though you're not necessarily the expert on it. I was intrigued, though. Scottsdale doesn't really make money from photo enforcement. It's kind of a break-even type thing, but it does, having an intersection that has photo enforcement does relieve officers from having to patrol that for red light violations. Has there been any move, to your knowledge, of increasing the numbers of intersections that have permanent red light cameras?
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, I'll state on the front end, I deal with the enforcement side of the program, or I did for the 5 years that I managed that program, but I never really dialed into the financial side of it. We always focused on the crash mitigation side, speed reduction side, so I was on that side of the data curve, so I can't speak on the finances of the program. When it comes to adding intersections, we are always looking to right size and modify all of our programs, everything from officer staffing to technology deployed around the department. So yes, the discussion of adding intersections has come up. It's a complex discussion. The first time I had the discussion, I thought it was an easy one until the manager who ran the program and knows it inside and out educated me on the fact that it's not just about adding an intersection, it comes with adding staffing. And then with added staffing comes added office space. And it's a snowballing discussion. Not something I would say is impossible, but or improbable. It's just, it's a big project to expand beyond where we're at. Feasible, and I'm lucky enough in my mid-level position that those decisions can be made at higher levels.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Lieutenant. Any other questions? Great. Thank you again, Lieutenant, and thank you for your service, and be safe out there.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, thank you so much. Have a good evening.
All right, our next agenda item is number 5, Transportation Safety Plan, Workforce and Emergency Responders Safety in the Right-of-Way. We'll see a presentation by Nathan Dome. Nathan.
Thank you, Chair Wilcoxon and members of the Transportation Commission. I will start off with workforce and safety for our workforce in the right-of-way, and then I'll pass it over to Captain Sasha Weller, the Health and Safety Officer with the Scottsdale Fire Department, and he'll talk about emergency responders. So we'll start with the purpose. The Scottsdale Transportation Safety Plan is going to include a section for workforce and emergency responder safety in the right-of-way. The framework is to protect employees, contractors, and emergency responders in that public right-of-way and the public during all work within the public right-of-way. This is to include the roadways, alleys, paved paths, unpaved trails, and frontages, all that jurisdiction or that area that we're focused on. This was a point of emphasis in our safety plan, something that's not particularly included in a lot of these safety plans across the nation to talk about workforce safety, but we have a lot of employees working next to high vehicles, high speeds, and we wanted to make a point of emphasis in our safety plan to identify that, as well as the emergency responders that are constantly in that right-of-way. So they do present a risk due to the high operational speeds, the changing traffic patterns, the complex work layouts, abnormal road conditions. So city staff and contractors are performing this work constantly during construction, maintenance, inspections, surveying. We have endless different types and reasons why we're in the right-of-way, and a large part of our focus is being there, so wanting to make sure that we look at opportunities that we can increase safety for them. Emergency responders obviously in the right-of-way during a work zone, during a crash that has happened, and how quickly and fast we can remove that situation, but at the same time keeping everybody safe while that's happening. And then also an emphasis on the members of the traveling public during these work areas, so especially in including bicyclists, pedestrians, and transit riders. A lot of times when we've closed a road down or have construction barricades up for road work, pedestrians and bicyclists take a pretty substantial hit when it comes to their connectivity. Pima Road is a good example now of the detour that we've had to deal with as we've been fixing southern Pima. So the common risks, the most common hazards in the right-of-way, struck by or intrusions in the work zone, speed and operating environments, so speeding in those work zones, obviously, complex traffic interactions. So if the traveling public is unfamiliar with the conditions of the road, that can lead to unsafe conditions or hasty decisions being made and complicated situations. Vulnerable road users, so once again emphasizing that when we put in these barricades, there is often impacts to the bike lanes and the pedestrian zones. Visibility, so night work, glare, low vision can also lead to, we've got a lot of dust, fog, we got construction work happening at night, and that could lead to some serious conditions, environmental stressors, and then public interactions in the work zone and just aggression towards that work zone. All things we wanted to highlight and emphasize in this plan. And then goals that we wanted to incorporate to look to mitigate those risks, also to mitigate any kind of injuries, would be first and foremost, as all sections of the plan, to eliminate or see a downgrade in fatalities and serious injuries to workers and emergency responders in the right-of-way. Reduce work zone intrusions and struck by incidents by prioritizing separation of traffic, speed management, and engineering protections before relying on personal protective equipment. So seeing what mitigation steps we can take before we're just saying, let's slap a vest on somebody and they can be safe. Protect vulnerable road users through accessible, predictable detours and channelization, making sure that we take an extra emphasis on those bicycle and pedestrians to those work zones. Ensure appropriate training and certifications for field staff. This was a point of emphasis when we had a meeting about this internally to talk about it and talk about applying to us an appropriate level of training to make sure that our staff is well aware of the risks associated with working in the right-of-way. Strengthen coordination between law enforcement and fire during incident management. This is obviously on display tonight as we have both of those departments in-house, and we want to keep that engagement with both law enforcement and fire open and constantly communicating when it comes to this. And then improve reporting and learning through consistently documenting incidents and near misses. Those near misses being the key aspect of that. Incidents obviously get reported, but if there's a near miss, that could be helpful information for us to see. Just because it was missed this time, it could be a lucky accident, and there could be ways that we can improve that moving forward in the future. So approach the framework uses a structured risk assessment to match the controls to conditions in the field. So establish a criteria for when particular protection is needed, police support or full closures when detours are necessary. Traffic and geometric evaluation use approach speeds, heavy volumes, heavy vehicle percentages, and sight distance tapers, buffer spaces and clear zones. And then a heat risk assessment. We know that it gets very hot in Arizona. We have a lot of work happening in the summer. One of our particularly heavy periods for construction in the right-of-way is during that summer events. That is because we know that there's low volumes on our roadways, but that doesn't mean that we shouldn't take extra emphasis to make sure that we have taken the necessary steps to keep our field work safe during the hot months. So the framework for the hierarchy of trying to make decisions on what we're relying on to keep our staff safe in the right-of-way is elimination of that conflict. So work outside of the travel way wherever feasible. So whether that's protective barriers, whether that's night work, whether that's any kind of ways to limit that conflict between the traveling public and our work source. So we know that we have pothole crews that go out there, and they're going out there with just a truck and pretty limited protections, no traffic control plans, and just going out there to get the pothole done as much as possible, but looking to how we can mitigate just pulling the truck over at 60, 65 mile an hour speeds and hope that they stay safe. Engineering controls, so appropriate protection, egress management, speed management, lane taper management, making sure that if we do have traffic control plans, we're doing all the necessary steps and as much protection as possible to keep everybody safe. And then administrative controls, public information and outreach, aggression during traffic, during a work zone can be very problematic. So making sure that we get public information out and outreach so people are informed that that work zone is there. If they don't want to deal with it, they can find an alternate route, or they just being aware of it at least can mitigate anger of its presence. And then finally, relying on PPE or personal protective equipment. Training, so making sure that we go into a structured focus on training, making sure we do refreshers for safety and participation in regular training sessions, making sure that our supervisor and our leads have at least assessed the work zone risks, the work zone itself, and then taking leadership in any heat illnesses. And then for our traffic controls, any recognized TCE credentials, authority for the TCP to design and adjustment. I know that they want they take pride in the TCP review. They want that control to make sure that they are listened to, adhered to, and the advice that they're giving on the TCPs are is good advice to keep everybody safe. And so just making sure that we emphasize that what they're doing is important, and we want to take their designs for the TCP as serious as we possibly can. And then equipment-specific qualifications, spotters, and back training. So that pothole truck, making sure that we may have a truck in the back to limit safety concerns. The safety culture, routine reporting of incidents and near misses. Once again, that near misses, and the use of the information for continuous improvement. We want to exercise that even the near misses are important to hear about, and make sure that we evaluate them and determine what was happening there and how can we improve on that. Regular leadership presence in the field, so any kind of audits or safety walks to determine if everything has been put up appropriately and everything's working. We saw on the Loop 101, I guess I can throw them under the bus right here because it wasn't our staff, but ADOT. But there was, oh, sorry, Carrie. But there was some very concerns with how short those on-ramps were, but in kudos to ADOT, there was strong mitigation of that and fixing of that as it got evaluated and improved. So making sure that even if we put the traffic control down, making sure we go out there, look at it, and see if there's modifications that can be made. And use a measurable safety metrics for the crews and the programs. So measurable safety metrics to make sure that they keep following and staying as safe as possible for themselves. Bicycle, pedestrian, and traffic safety, once again, those vulnerable roadway users in and around work zones. Lots of times the sidewalks get closed. Lots of times the bike lanes are the first to go when it comes to a roadway improvement. And so making sure that we find those temporary routes, make sure we have clear and hopefully restrictive signs to prevent people from walking into that work zone. I know that it's pretty aggravating and debilitating to be walking and then all of a sudden see a full closure of your sidewalk, but it's very important to make sure that we keep people out of that work zone. The Chaparral Underpass being a key example of making sure that we put those fences all the way into the lake, all the way around, so that nobody would be walking into an unfinished underpass. And I know that closed the Multays path off for a while, and that impacted people a lot, but we want to make sure that the traveling public's safe, not walking into the work zone, but also have those appropriate detours to take. And then transit access, making sure that we maintain access to those existing stops if they're there. If they're not there, which we right now have a detour going through, making sure that we put up temporary platforms and temporary stops at places so that accessibility to that transit routes are still available. And then now I will pass it over to the fire department for discussion about emergency responses.
Good evening. My name is Sasha Weller. I'm a fire captain with the Scottsdale Fire Department, currently assigned as the health and safety officer for the department. The bulk of my responsibility is in training and compliance right now for our first responders. So we develop all of our response around an all hazards approach. All hazards approach in the modern fire service is, we have a common saying, as our fire chief would say, if it's not bullets and bad guys, it belongs to the fire department. We respond to structure fires, wildland fires, emergency medical services needs, hazardous materials, mountain rescue, trail rescue, any of the hazards that the community might come into contact with as individuals, or large-scale incidents as we respond to not only as a singular fire department, but as a regional response system, and then part of the greater response system in what is known as the Urban Area Safety Initiative, and then a statewide and national response system in both hazardous materials response, weapons of mass destruction, et cetera, et cetera. What we typically see that we're dealing with quite a bit on our streets are collisions and crashes. As a part of that, those turn into fuel spills, hazardous materials incidents. Hazardous materials incidents that we're going to see typically from your, what I would call your garden variety vehicle crash, are going to be fairly insignificant as it relates to the actual hazard. Hazardous materials incidents are classified from the smallest spill to the very, very large. Small being things that are under 50 gallons, and normal chemicals, things that you're going to see on a daily basis, fuels, oils, those types of things, all the way up to anything that we're going to see large tanker trucks full of any number of different chemicals that would be carried throughout our city. We don't have a specific hazardous carrier route within our city, so any of those things are going to typically going to be at a large scale, going to be at a slower speed. However, water campuses, pool companies, et cetera, are going to be always carrying large quantities of chemicals such as acids, chlorines, corrosives, those types of things. So we do deal with all of those things. Flooding is a huge issue for us. We don't deal with as much the roadway problem as that we deal with when our roadways are flooded, drivers entering the roadway, and then our responders are out in the storms rescuing those people. Fortunately, I think, I'll knock on wood a little bit, last night I don't think we had to rescue anybody, but if you remember a few weeks ago when we had a great deal of floods, on the busiest night I think we rescued some 10 to 12 motorists out of their vehicles. Those are very hazardous rescues for our responders. They're high risk, low frequency, so we train quite a bit on those. But as fortunate as we are to have our Greenbelt system, it does present a set of challenges when it is flooded. And so you'll see quite a few of the hazards that we're dealing with during the water saturation events surrounded around the Greenbelt and the streets that lead in and around that. Vehicle fires are a common hazard of ours. We hear a lot these days about electrical vehicle fire or electric vehicle fires. While those are an incredible hazard, they're few and far between. Most of the transportation stuff that we're going to see electric-wise that really cause fires tend to be your e-bikes and smaller equipment. The vehicles themselves, larger motor vehicles, car passenger vehicles, we really don't see that many of the electric vehicle fires. I think we've seen 2 that are really reportable over the past couple of years. That said, when those vehicles do catch fire, they have what is called a thermal runaway. That's okay. They have what is called a thermal runaway of their battery pack, and they will burn for hours upon end. And so it does create a situation where we're going to have to shut down intersections or any of the surrounding areas, because the fire itself is not just the hazard. The off-gassing of the batteries as they are going through the thermal runaway process creates a hazardous environment chemically for the surrounding areas. So sometimes that comes with an evacuation of not just the streets, but the surrounding neighborhood as well. Again, I want to state really, really clearly, those are few and far between. We've only had a couple of those in the past couple of years. So we have to prepare for it, but it's not something that we're not prepared for. Our primary goal is always life safety. So in any crash or any incident like this, we're there to protect the victims of the incident and rescue those victims, get them out of the hazard zone, protect our folks, our responders, and any of the other roadway users, and then return the situation back to a state of normalcy as soon as we possibly can. Oh, I'm sorry. So our best practice and standard operating procedures, you'll see quite frequently when you see a vehicle accident, regardless of the severity of the initial crash, we're going to many times, out of an abundance of caution, close down an intersection, close down several lanes of traffic, and many times we get questioned about why are we interrupting traffic for something that seems to be such a minor crash. And the crash itself may not be extensive, but we have to put city employees in that intersection or city employees in those lanes of travel. And as traffic continues to drive by, we need to make sure that those folks are protected. So fortunately for us, we bring a really, really big traffic abatement tool to the scene with us in the form of a fire engine or a ladder truck. And so that allows us to close down lanes of travel or direct traffic around intersections by placing our vehicles into strategic positions to ensure that the patients that we're treating out of that crash are both in a safe position, that our folks are in a safe position. The last thing that we want to see is that incident become worse as a secondary part of business. So we always are very, very cognizant of protecting the backs of our ambulances as we load patients in. The fire service and the emergency services has a history of vehicle accidents that are a result of distracted drivers from watching the initial incident, running into the back of the ambulances as patients are being loaded. And like I said, the initial incident may have been somewhat minor, but even at a slow rate of speed, if you drive a vehicle into the back of an ambulance while we're loading a patient, that has the potential to be fatal, if not at a minimum very, very serious. So we strategically place all of our vehicles around the incident itself as a barrier, kind of as to envelop the scene and make sure that all of our folks are protected inside that envelope. That's typically a fairly short amount of time. It really is dependent upon the incident. Obviously, the longer and the more extensive incident, the longer we're going to be there. But again, on your garden variety type of incident, we want to be in and off that scene within about a 20-minute period of time. We work very, very closely with our law enforcement partners. We have a fantastic partnership with our police department to make sure that they know what we're going to be needing to be closed, and then how they can assist to do that, and then how they can work to make sure that they're routing traffic into a different area if we're going to have something that's going to be closed down, or if there's a congested intersection, congested area that they know that they're going to have to deal with. Again, our goal is always to protect everybody for that period of time. We're always going to employ a significant amount of personal protective equipment. What you saw in previous slides from transportation was the hierarchy of controls of safety, where personal protective equipment is at the bottom of that hierarchy. In the fire service, that's a little bit different because our job is a little bit different than the average person. The average person, we're trying to engineer out the issue, and so we put PPE at the bottom of that hierarchy. By definition, by law, our members are assigned to regularly hazardous duty, so personal protective equipment is a mandatory part of all things that they do. The uniform that they wear, all those things are engineered into their daily uniform. All the equipment that they wear, any piece of footwear, eyewear, protective headwear, et cetera, all defined by the National Fire Protection Association. We follow all the national standards associated with that. Lastly, what you'll see is a lot of the personal protective engineering that you're going to see on our equipment, so ladder trucks and fire engines. Many of you may remember years ago, if you looked at the back of a fire truck, it just looked like a big chrome piece of equipment. Now, if you drive behind any one of the Scottsdale fire trucks that you'll see out on the street, you'll see a reflective chevron pattern that's about a 10 foot by 10 foot reflective billboard. That's mandated by National Fire Protection Association, and it's best practices and the most modern way to make sure that people are very aware that they're going to be close to an emergency vehicle. It's got I can't speak to the specifics of it, but it's got a specific rating of reflectability. You should be able to see it 24/7. It has to reflect a certain way off of the lights that we're using, et cetera, et cetera. And then obviously we have the most aggressive lighting package, I guess that we could say, that we would put on our fire apparatus to ensure that the public sees that we're there and that they're aware of where we're moving to. That's what I have for you. If you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them.
Thank you, Chief Weller, and again, thank you for your service. We appreciate the risk you take every day. Chair Cadell, or Commissioner Cadell. Commissioner Davis, do you have anything from the phone?
No, I do not. Thank you.
Thank you.
For you specifically on the e-bike fires, so it sounds like for the two extremely rare electric car fires has happened, there's not much you can do except just evacuate and cordon off the area there. For e-bike fires, is that pretty much the same? There's not really any way to put it out till it goes out?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Commissioner, the process by which a lithium-ion battery has thermal runaway is the same regardless of the size of the battery pack. It's the size that really determines the length that it will burn. So an e-bike that might have a battery pack, we'll call it 4 inches by 4 inches, as opposed to something that's 6 feet by 6 feet, they tend to burn out a whole lot faster. So while an e-bike might start a fire, we're more concerned about the fact that it's going to extend into the rest of a house or into our wildland urban interface, if you will, and start a wildfire, brush fire, those types of things. The chemical hazard's the same, it's just the volume that is the difference. So when it comes to an e-bike, they're going to go out a whole lot quicker. When it comes to a full motor vehicle, they're going to burn longer. The solution that the industry currently has when it relates to lithium-ion batteries really is no different. It's a size of containment. And so if you'll bear with me for a second, if we have a motor vehicle that has a thermal runaway, we will do our very, very best to knock down that fire as best as possible. We then would bring in some level of lifting equipment similar to like a crane. It would again get placed inside of what is essentially a roll-off dumpster, but it's a specifically built roll-off dumpster for an electric vehicle. It would then get covered in sand and water, and that would get shipped off to a storage yard. We would do a similar process with an e-bike, only in the case of maybe putting in a bucket full of sand and water. But either way, the process of stopping thermal runaway is the same process.
And for the e-bike batteries or other lithium-ion batteries, well, specifically for e-bikes, what do you see as the most common causes of those fires? And is there any specific type of e-bike that maybe, or electric mobility device that you see those fires most common with? Like, is it crashes, or is it charging, or is it something else that, like when you see those fires?
So statistically, excuse me, Mr. Chairman, Commissioner, statistically, I don't have the exact numbers, but I can tell you intuitively and experience and what we tend to see. Thermal runaway occurs in a couple different situations. A, overheating, and so overcharging in many cases, or an accident that would cause intrusion into the vessel of its storage. E-bikes themselves, or any of them, really we're not seeing an incredible amount of incidents related to any thermal or any lithium-ion battery storage. It's just that when we see them, we tend to see more of the smaller ones. I think that has to do with the volume of the things that are out there. They're just about everything that we're building that has a battery nowadays is using a lithium-ion battery. So we see it in children's toys, the hoverboards, e-bikes, et cetera. But again, because the size of the battery, many times by the time that we're dealing with that, we're dealing with more of a structure fire or a wildland fire as a result that battery has completed its thermal runaway process in a fairly short amount of time because of its size.
Thank you.
Yes.
I think I have a question for Mr. Dome. You know, we have a lot of beautiful landscaping in our right-of-ways, which is maintained by private trucks, and they're all over the road sometimes. And in the medians, on the side, is there anything can we get control of that?
Chair Wilcoxon and Commissioner Marmon, that's a good point. I've seen them too, and they put out a couple cones, and then they're blocking a lane of traffic. We can look into what's occurring there, and I'm pretty sure they're not getting a traffic control plan, and we do have some new ordinances that might allow us to cite some kind of action like that.
Thank you. Also I guess by observation, when construction is left overnight, lighting is sometimes a problem. The big box store that was constructed up on North Site in Hayden, those things were crashed. You can tell they were been crashed into overnight. So I'd like if you can emphasize the importance of the lighting at night during these sites. I think that would be really good.
Commissioner Marmon, I completely agree with lighting for any construction that is occurring at night or any construction barriers that are still in place at night.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you both, actually. I had questions for you both. For actually more of a comment, because Commissioner Marmon mentioned my first comment about contractors. Nathan, I just appreciate your focus on worksite and workforce protection. That's sometimes forgotten about, that the road workers are at a huge disadvantage when they're out there, and it's a very dangerous job. And then similarly, Captain Weller, the thing that I always question or wonder about is the exposure of firefighters to heat stress, especially during the summer, especially when they're out in the middle of a road trying to respond to a vehicle fire or just a vehicle incident. They're in full gear. It's extremely hot outside. You've got the asphalt as well. And then they're doing very stressful work. How does the fire department monitor heat stress among responding firefighters?
Mr. Chairman, thank you for the question. So we have a very aggressive approach to heat stress management, really valley-wide, but specifically in Scottsdale. We invest a lot in our folks. So during our summer months, really any time, but really it occurs during our summer months, we have daily notifications about our heat stress warnings. So we have what's considered a red flag conditions, and that exists anytime that the heat index exceeds 100, will exceed 105 degrees. So our first warning is forecasting. So if we know that the heat index, which is a calculation of several different criteria, not just ambient air, but humidity, wind, et cetera, many different criteria. When we know that at any given time that we'll be in that condition during that 24-hour shift, we notify all of our fire stations. Our folks are notified at 8 o'clock in the morning what work conditions will be for the day. We move into what is called our red flag condition status, which limits outdoor activity that is unnecessary. It limits our daily physical training to indoor physical training. It shortens the period and strenuousness of that daily physical training. We move all of our regular training drills either to a Blackboard platform on a computer, similar program like that, as opposed to having folks out in the heat. What we can't stop is the emergency, and so we have to be there for the emergency. So we need to shift all of our efforts from our preparation to emergency response. And so we take all the daily activity that we would normally do on a day like today, where we would have crews out training and drilling, and we shunt that to ensure that they're ready to respond to the emergency and limit the amount of potential hazard they're going to be. Additionally, we have a fairly aggressive hydration and electrolyte replacement program. To put it into context, we are graduating a Recruit Academy class tomorrow night. That Recruit Academy class started in June, and my electrolyte replacement budget for that academy class for the months of June and July were $15,000 just to replace their electrolyte replacement. So we're very, very serious about it. We're very, very aggressive about it. Heat stress is a significant issue for us. We go as far as to make sure that they're monitoring intake and discharge of fluids, and colors, tones, monitoring vital signs, all of those things. We implement a process by which we monitor vital signs for all what we consider working incidents. So that would be fires, trail rescues, anytime they're really going to be in gear for 20 minutes or longer. We're going to make sure that their vital signs are within normal limits defined by our department physician. Anytime that they exceed that, we would retest them again after a 20-minute break. If they're not brought within normal limits, then they would be seen by a physician. And then we really spend a ton of time working on our work-rest cycles. So what that looks like to us is anytime somebody's going to be in emergency gear, turnout gear, or anything that's going to be weighted gear for anything longer than 20 minutes, we won't work them past that 20-minute work cycle. We deploy a significant rehabilitation, mobile rehabilitation truck on working incidents over the summer months, full of shades, fans. We have the ability to bring in another truck from some of our other partners that's essentially a giant RV, and we'll take our firefighters out of their gear, put them inside that for their work rest cycle. That temperature is dropped down to below 70 degrees in that vehicle. We bring their core temperature back up before we'll redeploy them back out as a part of their work cycle. And then again, we'll remonitor them for any of those, any signs of heat stress.
Thank you. Are there, and I don't mean to take too long on this, but are there active biometrics being recorded on the firefighters, like watches or anything like that, that would give you some idea of pulse and respiration?
Mr. Chairman, I would tell you as a matter of bulk data, yes. We're somewhat limited on what we can monitor specific medical information on our employees. Our employees pass annual medical physicals, a very robust annual medical physical that is maintained or that is mandated by National Fire Protection Association. It's standard 1582, which goes in every, it's very aggressive. It's measuring anything from cardiac health to spirometry, eyesight, hearing. It's an extensive physical. I just went through mine. It's about a 3.5-hour process that they must go through every year. And then if there's anything that we notice in that, they're sent to a number of different specialists to ensure that we can deploy them in an emergency situation. If at that point they're not capable of being able to report for emergency duty, they're placed on light duty until they're brought back into an area within normal limits. If they're not ever able to get to that place, then we have to have a maybe more serious discussion about where they're headed career-wise. But we take the health and safety of our members incredibly seriously. We spend a ton of resources on doing that. That said, our job is, as the law states, regularly assigned to hazardous duty, and so it doesn't come without hazard. We would love to see a time where we're not going to send our folks to the hospital. It's probably unrealistic working in central Arizona in the middle of the desert heat. So we'll do everything that we can to it, but it doesn't come without a challenge.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Chair Wilcoxon, we actually have 2 more slides. One's on the TMC and the other on special event safety. So I'll let everybody decide who wants to speak to those. You can draw straws. John, you go ahead since they may have questions related to your technology.
Thank you, Susan. So I guess, yeah, this one's kind of snuck into the presentation right here. So for emergency responses, traffic management, staff is kind of like behind the scene. We kind of know everything's going on, so we monitor remotely that not a lot of people know, but we have eyes and ears on what's going on within the city. from 6 to 6 or even after hours too. So as far as if there's a incident that happened to be, 2 lanes happen to close, right? If we have 3 lanes and they restricted 2 lanes. Obviously, traffic is kind of backed up. And sometimes if we don't do anything, it could be half a mile, even longer. So that's when TMC staff jump in and actually move traffic. We extend the green time to make sure that we minimize delays, one of them, and also not to minimize the secondary crashes. Oh, and the last bullet, I'm not sure if a lot of people know, we do have the emergency, we call it a preemption system, the emergency preemption system, which this kind of technology that we have in the city is when the fire truck is within range, roughly about 300 to 500 feet in advance of the intersection, the green light is going to turn on for them to actually go through the intersection instead of being stopped. So that would minimize the response time, and also to reduce the crashes, if people's kind of run through it. And this is the last slide with special event safety. Department with Homeland Security and Fire Department. The things that we do during special events, we set up barriers. As I think everyone's aware that if you have a crowded area, if we have no protection, no barrier, random vehicles tend to kind of run into the crowded places. So the way we set up is we use different options, temporary concrete barrier, water field barrier, or in the waste management, we also use the solid waste vehicle actually to block as a barrier for any errant vehicle or intentional vehicle that trying to get into the crowded area. Also, permanent ballers is one of the methods that we use too. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Any questions from any of the commissioners? Go ahead, Commissioner.
So this is actually back when you were talking for the, I guess, slide 10 on the pedestrian, bicycle, and transit safety issue. There is, because I remember when work was being done on the Greenbelt, just north of Indian School, I believe. And so the path was being repaired and widened and all that, and so it was shut down, and it wasn't really clear, and so I ended up having to ride quite a while in the middle of the road with no bike lane or anything like that on Hayden. And so, and now I see, and this isn't totally, but there's work being done just south of the El Dorado Park, where the fence barriers are up, and there's actually like a temporary walkway that's been built there. Is that new policy, or is that's been done before, just for that one section, it just wasn't employed for whatever reason?
That was a determination made for that area. There's not a particular policy directing us to do that, and I hope this safety plan would encourage us to develop some kind of guidelines for how we mitigate closures for bikes and pedestrian access, and looking for those detours, clear signage, and showing just a little extra emphasis on us to find the appropriate ways we can mitigate that stoppage of use during those construction hours.
Thank you. Just on the El Dorado temporary path also, I guess the way it was laid down, have you been on it at all? Or do the city staff ever ride on that temporary path or walk on that path? Do you know?
Greg has been there quite a while,
Yeah.
so.
I just noticed when I ride on it, it's, the grass is pushing through the asphalt or whatever it is, and so it gets pretty bumpy at points, and so, yeah, I didn't know if anybody's just out there to just look at it, and I don't know if maintaining it's a possibility or how long, because there's no information saying, hey, this detour is gonna be here for the next 6 months or 3 weeks or something. It's just, you just kind of are forced onto it, and you don't know what's being done, and you don't know how long it's gonna be there. So I would ask that when there is work done, if there could be some sort of informational thing, just so that people know. I mean, I'm sure it's on the, I know where to find it on the website, but my neighbor doesn't even know that my neighbor, when I was talking to him, didn't even know that there was, you could go to the city website to look things up, so.
Those are excellent points. Commissioner Koftal will make sure we incorporate the safety plan, and we'll make sure to monitor that temporary path, and that it doesn't degrade by the time we finish the paths, the more permanent paths. Not more permanent, the actual permanent paths.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks.
Any other questions? Commissioner Davis?
Not for me, thank you.
Okay. All right, thank you, Nathan. And now moving on to item number 6. Welcome, Nathan.
I'll stay right here. Thank you, Chair Wilcoxon and members of the Transportation Commission. We are going to roll out the recommended transportation project list for fiscal year 26-27. We've been working quite a while on this to look at the new transportation and infrastructure capital requests. So what we're going to do a possible action and discussion to summarize the new transportation infrastructure capital requests submitted through the pre-budget process. We have a new process this year where we are submitting and reviewing all of these through the city manager's office, that they want to evaluate all capital projects, both new and existing. And so tonight we'll talk about the new project requests, but that will be ranked and then go through the regular budget process coming up in the next couple months, all the way up until April and May, when the final budget starts getting adopted and reviewed by council. All projects submit new projects annually for the 5-year budget. Right now, we have done the pre-screening, but now it is open for us to actually submit those into the budget. Starting from November going to December is the department's listed submittal process. So then after that, it goes through internal CIP committee reviews for alignment with city priorities, funding constraints and capacities, deliverability and phasing. So for us with funding constraints, we have our dedicated funding sources. So when we're having these conversations with internal CIP committees, it's more of a reflection on the transportation and priorities with transportation. We don't necessarily compete for general funds as some of the other departments would. We do from time to time, but for the most part, we stick with our dedicated funding sources. And so as you'll see, as I go through the new transportation and infrastructure requests, they will mostly be reflected into our dedicated funding sources, as well as regional and federal funding sources as well. So the project types, the new projects for the CIP include traffic signal, ITS, state of good repair and modernization projects, roadway reconstruction and corridor design projects, intersection safety and roundabout design, shared use path design and multimodal connectivity, citywide bus stop rehabilitation, and then bus or trolley vehicle purchasing project. Those are the general themes of our projects as we come forward. So pretty comprehensive and well-distributed types of projects on what we generally work on and what we work with in the transportation department. So starting with our yearly accounts, these are our reoccurring capital accounts for quick fixes Small modifications are the things that allow us to move rapidly to make changes or make improvements through the community. The other ones are those much bigger projects. But so every year we ask for another year to continue this funding. So far, the remaining Y accounts that we have, and it was a larger list a couple of years ago, and now we've slimmed it down to pretty much the bones of what we need, which is the pavement preservation overlay, by far the largest of our Y accounts. Then we have our roadway capacity and safety improvements, bikeways program, street light replacements, trail improvement program, and then capital construction, traffic signal constructions. They range from the pavement overlay to being in the, it was in the 20 millions, now it's about 30 or 40 million dollars. Roadway capacity is just shy of $1 million. Bikeways and trails is hovering around the $200,000 to $300,000 range. Streetlights around $300,000, and traffic signals, once again, shy of $1 million, is how those budgets are laid out. And every year we ask for that funding. So starting with that, those are part of the request coming in. And then I'm going to go into each of the individual projects that are looking for either additional funding or new projects. This is one of our existing projects. It's a bond project from 2019, looking for a 0.2% sales tax. The Thompson Peak Bridge over the Riata Wash, you can see on the overhead that the existing bridge to the south was built in 2000. That's there, and as the road lays out, it's begging for another bridge just to the north. That this project is to add that new bridge to the north and then realign the roadway to connect to that bridge. Right now, we have about $6.3 million in the bond for this. We're going to need an additional $7.4 million to complete this construction at $13.7 million. So that would be one of the requests to make sure we can complete this bridge. Thomas Road, 56th Street to 73rd. This is a repavement rehabilitation project, a full depth reconstruction in most parts for Thomas Road. We did get a federal grant for this at a 70-30 split, so 70% of the funding is going to be from the federal government with an STBGP grant. The rest of it, the 30%, is what's being requested, the $7.4 million, to improve that roadway. That includes signal upgrades as well as ADA upgrades. So starting that in the next fiscal year. Traffic signal rewiring citywide, looking to get about $11 million stretched over 5 years to replace aging wiring infrastructure at our traffic signals. It will improve reliability, reduce failures of our signals, and support safety. So a pretty overhauling replacement of some of our important capital assets in the city for design and construction, and just an end of the year replacement. Then major traffic signal equipment upgrade. This would be the boxes, just as you can see in the image here. Just $300,000 to do some end-of-year replacements on those important cabinets, controllers, and signal indicators for several of our traffic signals across the city. Doubletree corridor traffic signal upgrades, $600,000 to once again improve end-of-the-year replacements on the traffic signals throughout the Doubletree corridor. They are unique poles for the city of Scottsdale, as you can see in the image, and looking to upgrade those signal poles and equipment along that intersection. Not the intersection, that corridor. Northside Boulevard and Bathurst Drive, looking to construct this as a signalized intersection. So improving operations and safety along this intersection. It was identified as needing a signalization, so looking to incorporate this as a new project in the CIP. Trolley vehicle purchase. Some of our buses purchased in 2013 and 2014 need to be replaced, starting with 5, but looking to replace all 13 in the next 5 years. We have to increase the budget. This is a federally funded project, so not all locally funded, but about a 80-20 split to purchase these buses. We're now, due to inflation, getting buses at about $800,000 a bus, and that is a costly endeavor, but we are slated to get 5 buses by next fall and then continue that on moving forward. Transit stop revitalization and improvements citywide. You can see on this screen a bus stop from 2005. It's outdated, the paint's rusting, it's getting a little rusty, so looking to make end-of-life replacements for a good portion of these 2005 bus stops. This is fully funded by the regional sales tax, so no local funding in this, just putting it in the capital budget and looking to get reimbursed for those 37 transit stops as we systematically replace them with our more modern fixtures. Dynamite Boulevard, 56 to Pima Road. This is us starting the Prop 479 ALCP projects. Prop 479 passed in the fall of 2024, allocating regional sales tax to these arterial life cycle projects, the arterials of regional significance. We have several of them. Phase 1 is 3 projects that I'm coming up with now. So Dynamite would be the first one for design only. So looking to incorporate a early level design and new cost estimates so we can get a good grasp on this project. Right now we have about $60 million in the transportation, in the TIP, the Regional Transportation Improvement Program slated for this project. We want to make sure that we get a good cost estimate before we start really diving into it. So this is just putting enough money towards a design and then moving forward. The project cost that you see there is for the full design. We don't intend to spend all of that for the pre-design and the cost estimate, but putting it in the budget so that we can move forward with full design as we move forward. This will widen Dynamite to 4 lanes with a median sidewalks and bike lanes. Our general practice with these ALCP projects up north for the widenings. Pinnacle Peak Road, Scottsdale Road to Pima, another one of the ALCP from Prop 479. Regional sales tax with a 0.1% sales tax. We have a dedicated funding source. We have our 0.2 for our general transportation fund, and then we have the 0.1 that was passed in 2019 for the local match of these arterial widenings. So Pinnacle Peak, very similar to Dynamite, widening to 4 lanes, median, curb, gutter, and sidewalks and bike lanes. Looking for the same thing, a design, cost estimate, moving forward with our agreements with MAG and moving forward to complete this construction in the timely manner of the next 5 years. The Legacy Boulevard Bridge over the Rata Wash. I started with the bridge at Thompson Peak. This is its twin, in essence, at the south section of Rata, just on the south side of DC Ranch, building that southern bridge to mimic and be the twin to the northern bridge, the westbound bridge, the eastbound bridge. This is in the ALCP to build that second bridge. So looking to start that design, get a new cost estimate, and really evaluate how it's going to proceed moving forward in the next coming years. Wallapai Drive shared use path from Pima Road to 80 to 95th Place for design only to evaluate a multi-use path on the south side. We heard from residents in this neighborhood that there's no sidewalks or any kind of pedestrian connections. We have planned a multi-use path going on the south side of Wallapai. They were very enthusiastically excited about that. We're going to look to evaluate that cost and that design and then move forward into hopefully a good cost estimate and a construction in the next coming CIP. 91st Street and Trailside View Roundabout requested from DC Ranch as well as an evaluation by our traffic engineering team that this intersection could use some modifications on the safety as well as the efficiency. It's a non-signalized intersection, So evaluated that roundabout was the preferred alternative to this, and evaluating design only what the construction cost would be to put a roundabout into that intersection. Prioritization framework, staff applied the criteria consistent with the 2022 Transportation Action Plan. These are the metrics that we use to evaluate when we're prioritizing that list that we just went over. So asset condition or state of good repair, one of the primary focuses of the Transportation Action Plan is maintaining what we already have and making sure that our assets are in good working order and that we are keeping a good state of good repair. The next is safety or risk reduction. So one of the key focuses we have in any project that we want to try and prioritize higher, move forward, is improving the safety of the network. System operations and reliability, any kind of things that would improve the performance or the congestion relief, as well as our transit system, making sure that those operations are functioning as best as we can. Another key thing, as you saw in the slides, is external leverage, external funding and leveraging of those federal, state funds and regional funds to make sure that we are using our local funding as much as we possibly can by allocating out federal funds into our projects. And then multimodal and equity benefits, so ADA accessibility, walking, biking, transit is another focus point in the TAP. Going forward with that criteria as well as the projects forward, staff is recommending that we have these several tiers moving forward, and as we move forward, we'll rank them within these tiers. But tier one, emphasizing the funding leverage and the major roadways. So the three projects from the ALCP, the Dynamite, Pinnacle Peak, and Legacy, being high on our prioritization to get funding. Thomas Road, federally funded in a full depth reconstruction of the roadway, and then Thompson Peak Bridge over the Riata Wash, the bond project that needs additional funding support. So the three ALCP projects would be from a different funding source, the 0.1%, the other two would be from the 0.2%, and then the rest of the projects would also be from the 0.2%. So then tier two being safety and operation priorities. So looking at the signal projects, signals in transit, so the traffic rewiring, the Doubletree corridor, the major traffic signal upgrade, equipment upgrade, the transit stop, the vehicle purchase, and then the yearly programs being those two tiers of how we would lay out our prioritization. Once we have the list laid out, then we get from finance what the bottom line of our funding cap is and see where the line is drawn and what can get funded and what can't. And then the last three are the phase three for future consideration or design, laying them out at the bottom to say if additional funding is available, North Site and Butheris, 91st Street and Wallapai. So emphasizing that this is in line with our general plan as well as our transportation action plan, supports by city policies of complete streets, ADA compliance, and fiscal stewardship. The funding is through the 0.1% sales tax and the 0.2% sales tax, as well as regional funding and grants. And then the recommendation is for tier one and tier two to prioritize for funding, and tier three may be phased or deferred within the 5-year window based on council's direction or funding availability. So questions and discussion?
Commissioner Cardella.
Thank you. I have a question about the Thomas Road project. So I may be misremembering, but I think that was fully designed and ready to go, but then the decision was made to not move forward on that. And then if that's the case, is the same design that was in place, it's just moving forward with that, or is there redesign that's going to occur?
It's the same design in place. There's a little bit of the final design that needs to take place. It will keep the lanes as is, but the pavement reconstruction is the same design. The signals, the ADA improvements is the same design. So the only thing changing is we're keeping the lane configuration as it was, as it currently still is. And that would be the minor change that we need to address in the project. And then we also now that it's a federal project, we have to go with federal compliances on that project.
And I remember there was going to be burying of some electric lines, and then there was some difficulties with right-of-way, and so is all that still remain in it? And is there still challenges with that, or those aren't?
We've acquired the right-of-way from the original project. We have acquired that right-of-way.
Okay.
So we don't have right-of-way challenges per se anymore. And the undergrounding or the relocation of the electrical lines, that's still in conversations we are having with SRP about whether we're undergrounding it. I think we're still intending to underground it at the 68 and Thomas intersection, but then there's poles further down that are obstructions to the sidewalks, and talking to them about relocating that. They won't underground it, but relocating them further within the right-of-way so that they are not obstructing the sidewalks anymore. So still in conversation with SRP to incorporate that into the project.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Koftal.
Thank you for the presentation. I had the same, my question about Thomas Road was answered. It's a little disappointing there's not going to be a lane configuration, but so just get that on the record. For the trolley vehicle purchase, when I first came here, there was some discussion of what type of fuel the trolleys were going to use. Has that, because I know the natural gas presented a problem with, it took a long time to fuel them, and so there was only one thing we could, and so that was causing delays and stuff like that. So there was talk about either going to diesel or petrol or whatever. What kind of fuel are the trolley vehicles going to be
The
using?
new buses, I believe there's CNG, but I'm not sure. I'd have to get back to you on
Okay.
exactly what that fuel type is.
Okay. For your slides 14, 15, and 16, this is just a typo thing. When you go back a couple of slides there, that's for the Dynamite Boulevard, Pinnacle Peak, and Legacy. There where you state where the funding is, it's regional sales tax, transportation, 0% sales tax.
Yep.
So I think you just need to add that one in there.
That one that needs to happen, thanks.
Yeah. So that, I think that was it. I just noticed that, and I was like,
We'll make that adjustment and incorporate this in the packet so that it's reflected correctly.
We want to make sure that you're reading the slides, so you found our test and you passed.
I made sure to get the .2 out of there and forgot to add the 1.
okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Koftal. Commissioner Davis.
Yes, for the Tier 1 projects, I guess I didn't see it listed, but would the trolley vehicle program, because we're getting federal funding for part of that, be a Tier 1 project?
I put it in Tier 2 for state of good repair.
Oh, okay.
I would believe that a good portion of Tier 2 should have funding, particularly the ones that have federal funding associated with it. But I guess you're right. I could have put it in Tier 1, but I put it in Tier 2 because those were 2 state of good repair projects.
Okay. And then I think you had mentioned that 19 projects had advanced to this next round. Do you know how many were you submitted, as, I guess, on the prior culling,
I don't remember the number offhand, but there was more than the 19, and there's no assurances that these 19 will be funded. These are the ones moving forward in the prioritization, and then there will be a cutoff line, and some of these will not be funded.
Sure, yeah. I guess my overall comment, I can't argue with your ranking methodology. It's unfortunate that some of the projects that are in Tier 3 are fairly low in dollar value, and could be, I think some of them, right, were in the low 100,000s, and so obviously wherever we draw the water line, right, they won't be able to make the cut because we are justifying projects that are in the millions of dollars. But I will, oh, because this is the right ranking, so hopefully, hopefully there's a good amount of budget available.
And there, thank you, Commissioner Davis, and there's certainly no reason to not continue moving forward with these projects. If they don't get funded this year, keep them on the list and try and rank them higher in the next year as they get reevaluated for the second year.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? I just had a question really on optics. I'm also disappointed, for the record, about Thomas Road, but I guess this slide and the one before that, you have Tier 1, which is what again? External funding, corridor priorities. And then you have Tier 2, which is safety. Kind of looks like we're putting expansion over safety. And I know sometimes that's necessary, but if you look at the priorities of the city of Scottsdale, it looks like safety is at least number 2. Might be better to figure out a way to not make it look so obvious going forward. I understand that probably we're going to be voting to approve Tier 1 and Tier 2, which will include those. It just looks like, despite what we say on our safety plan and despite what we say in public outings, safety is not number 1. So just throwing that out there as a problem with optics.
No, it's a Chair Wilcoxon, it's a fair point. And on this slide, I probably could have done a better job showing that those top 3 projects are not impacting the line for the other projects, right? Because the top 3 are that 0.1% sales tax. They're in a different bucket. And then really the 0.2 bucket starts at Thomas and Thompson Peak and goes further into Tier 2. So the expectation is a good portion of Tier 2 should be funded. It's just, those are 2 different buckets, but I agree with the optics, and we can look to improve that.
Right, and you know, the other aspect of that is even the Tier 1 projects, even though they're not specifically safety projects, they're going to be making the roads that they're affecting safer.
Yeah.
So it might be better to point that out in the Tier 1 so that people know that you're not building unsafe roads. You're building roads that are safer than what we have, even though that's not the priority. I mean, that's not the main reason for doing the project.
No, thank you. Yes, we'll make sure to emphasize that because you're right.
And then you are looking for action by us.
Possible action, if yes, if the commission wants to take action on this, I would be very amenable to that. So yes, if the commission wants to take action, then I guess we've laid up what we recommend the commission action. If there's any amendments or changes, but yeah, action would be great.
Does anyone want to make a motion that on these?
What is the wording? Was there some suggested word? Was there some suggested wording up there?
Transportation approves support of Tier 1 and Tier 2 as the highest priority for funding in the upcoming 5-year CIP, and then second, support Tier 3 for advancing as funding allows. So approving all projects on the list, but just saying Tier 1 and Tier 3 as the highest priority, and then Tier 3 as funding is allowed.
Well, I would move the staff recommendation as shown on that slide.
Do we have a second?
Second, with the, I guess, with the second, does that include the points that Chair Wilcoxon made there?
Yes, we can incorporate safety as a component as we move forward to show, as Chair Wilcoxon pointed out, those projects do come with safety improvements and emphasize safety in the prioritization.
Okay. Then I second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Do we need a roll call, I assume?
Thank you. Chair Wilcoxon?
Approved.
Thank you. Vice Chair Cardella,
Yes.
thank you. Commissioner Marmon,
Approve.
thank you. Commissioner Koffthal,
Approved.
thank you. Commissioner Davis,
Yes.
thank you. And Commissioner Baker,
Approved.
thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Nathan. And with that, that brings the agenda to a close. So we take a motion on adjournment?
I think we usually do motion second and then just all
All in favor?
group vote.
Okay, so do we have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
All those in favor of adjourning the meeting? Aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you very much. This, I will say that this is our last meeting of the year. So our next meeting, I believe, is January 15th. I hope everyone has a wonderful Thanksgiving, and everyone has a Merry Christmas or Happy Hanukkah, and a Happy New Year, and I believe also a thoughtful Martin Luther King Day. So we'll see you all in January. Happy New Year.
Thank you.
So much.